with inequalities. So, same exact process that we're going to use. We are going to make sure that we simplify first. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can do this, and it really depends on the situation. Because what we learned back in our last couple lessons, when dealing with Pythagoras or the distributive property, I could simply divide by 2 to both sides, and then subtract 5, or add 5. But in this case, because there's a 1 over here, it might not be the best way to do it. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the distributive property to solve. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 5 is 10. So I'm going to add 10 to both sides. Again, solving an inequality is very, very similar to solving an equation. Divide by 2, and we get x is less than or equal. You can either say 5.5 or you can say 5.5. Both are appropriate here because it doesn't start with a fraction or a decimal, so you can have either one. Now it says to check your solution. A number I always like to pick when checking solutions is 0. In this case, 0 is less than 5.5, so that should make this entire thing true. So let's use 0. So I have 2, x minus 5 is less than or equal to 1. Substitute 0 in for x. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. And negative 10 is less than 1. So that works. Last question here now, example 4. So in this example, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create our own example, or our own inequality, and then solve it. So it says the Carlton Company budgeted $1,825 for a banquet. That's something important. So I'm going to make sure that that's highlighted. The cost of the facility is $225. That's also important. It says, how much can the company spend per guest on food if there's a $3 charge per guest for linens? So that's important. And there are 80 guests coming. So this is a lot of information. But really what we're looking for here now I see. Is how much, no, back it up, is how much is the company spending per guest on food. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to gotta make a set of variable. So we're going to say let's go G. Be the cost per guest. So let's start setting this up then. This might be just a little bit of a tricky inequality, but let's go through it. So it says here there are 80 guests coming. So it's going to be 80 guests times however much money it is going to be per guest. So it's however much the company can spend, plus the $3 for linens, and it's $225 for the facility for a total of $1,825. All right, let's simplify. 80 times G is 80G. 80 times 3 is 240. Combine these two terms together. I now have 80G plus 465, and that's going to equal this $1,825. I want to get the variable terms alone, so I'm going to subtract $465. This creates a zero pair. I'm left with 80G on the left side. And on the right side, $1,825 minus $465 is going to be $1,360. And if we divide that by 80, we see that G is going to be equal to 17, which means that this company can spend $17 per guest. All right, last example here. Now we're going to solve this inequality, and then we're going to graph it also. So first thing I want to do is simplify. So on the right side, nothing's going to change. And on the left side, we have 2 times x, which is 2x. 2 times 6, which happens to be 12. I want to get rid of this term, because there's less on this side than this side. So to get rid of it, I create a 0 pair. So I'm left with 12. And I now have 3x minus 9. All my variables are together. I want this non-variable term away. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. I now have 3x, because this creates a 0 pair, is greater than 21. Last, of course, is get x all by itself. So I now have x is greater than or equal to 7. Now, when I go ahead and graph this solution, I want to put 7 right in the middle because 7 was part of the solution, or 7 was the cutoff point. We're going to go 8 and 9, and the other direction we'll have 6 and 5. Now, when we graph inequalities, if you recall, this has a line underneath. This is greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to, which means that my circle starting at 7 will be filled in. And because it's greater than or equal to, that means it's going to be numbers greater than 7. So I'm going to have an arrow pointing off in this direction here. And that's the end of Lesson 8. If you have any questions, please let me know.